Welcome to the most relaxing journey through Five Nights at Freddy's you'll ever experience. Tonight, we're not diving into deep lore or solving mysteries. We're not unraveling timelines or debating theories. Instead, we're exploring the wonderfully useless, delightfully trivial, and completely unnecessary details that make FNAF such a rich and fascinating world. These are the facts that won't help you survive a night at Freddy's, won't solve any mysteries, and won't advance your understanding of the story. But they're charming, interesting, and perfect for drifting off to sleep. So settle in, relax, and let's explore the useless side of FNAF together. Let's start with one of the most beloved useless traditions in the entire franchise: Freddy's nose honk. In the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, if you click on Freddy Fazbear's nose in the Celebrator poster on the left wall of your office, it makes a squeaky honking sound. That's it. That's the entire Easter egg. It doesn't help you survive, it doesn't reveal lore, it doesn't do anything except make a silly noise. And yet, this simple honk became so iconic that Scott Cawthon included it in almost every subsequent game in the series. The nose honk appears in FNAF 2, where you can click Freddy's nose on the poster in your office. It appears in FNAF 3, on the cute Freddy poster in Fazbear's Fright. It appears in FNAF 4, where you can click the Freddy plushie's nose on the bed. It appears in Sister Location, on the Freddy poster in the elevator. It appears in Pizzeria Simulator on various Freddy-related items. The nose honk has become a tradition, a little moment of levity in otherwise terrifying games, a way for Scott to say, "Hey, remember to have fun." The sound itself is just a simple, squeaky toy noise, the kind you'd hear from a dog toy or a rubber ducky. It's completely out of place in a horror game, which is part of what makes it so charming. You're sitting in your office conserving power, watching for animatronics that want to kill you, and you can take a moment to honk Freddy's nose like a child. It's a reminder that these are, at their core, children's entertainment characters, even if they've been twisted into something horrifying. Fans have embraced the nose honk with enthusiasm. It's become a rite of passage for new players. Your first time playing FNAF, someone will inevitably tell you to click Freddy's nose. Speedrunners include it in their runs as a good luck ritual. Fan games almost always include their own version of the nose honk. It's a small, useless detail that has become an essential part of the FNAF experience. Proof that sometimes the most meaningless things become the most memorable. Speaking of useless office details, let's talk about the fan. In FNAF 1, there's a desk fan sitting on your desk, spinning away throughout the night. This fan serves absolutely no gameplay purpose. It doesn't cool you down, it doesn't affect the animatronics, it doesn't do anything except sit there and spin. And yet the fan has become one of FNAF's most iconic objects, spawning countless memes and jokes in the community. The fan appears in multiple games, always just sitting there, being a fan. In FNAF 1 it's on your desk, in FNAF 2 it's there again, in FNAF 3 you can see it in the office. The fan is eternal, the fan is everywhere. The fan is watching. The community has joked that the fan is the true villain of FNAF, that it's secretly controlling everything, that it's more powerful than any animatronic. There are theories, joking ones mostly, that the fan is possessed, that it drains your power, that it's actually important to the lore. The truth is much simpler. The fan is there for atmosphere. It adds ambient noise, it adds movement to an otherwise static scene, it makes the office feel more real and lived in. Scott included it because offices have fans, and that's all there is to it. But the community's obsession with the fan shows how FNAF fans will latch onto anything, finding meaning and humour in the most mundane objects. The fan doesn't need to be important. It's important because we decided it is. The fan spinning creates a subtle visual rhythm that's actually quite soothing. If you just sit and watch it spin, ignoring the horror around you, it's almost meditative. The steady rotation, the gentle whir of the blades, the way it never stops or changes, there's something calming about it. Maybe that's why the fan has endured as a beloved element of FNAF. In games designed to stress you out, the fan is a constant, a reliable presence that just keeps spinning no matter what happens. Let's move on to another completely useless detail, the paper plates. In FNAF 2 there are paper plate decorations of Bonnie and Freddy that can randomly appear on the walls of your office. They're just decorations, crude drawings of the characters on paper plates, the kind of thing you'd see at a children's birthday party. They don't do anything, they don't mean anything, they're just there to be slightly creepy and add to the atmosphere. The paper plates are interesting because they represent the restaurant's attempt at cheap decoration. Instead of expensive posters or elaborate displays, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza uses paper plates with marker drawings. It's a detail that tells you something about the establishment. This is a budget operation, a place that cuts corners, a restaurant that's seen better days. The paper plates are sad in a way, a reminder of the restaurant's decline and the company's cheapness. But from a gameplay perspective, the paper plates are completely useless. They appear randomly, they don't affect anything, and most players probably don't even notice them. They're the definition of an unnecessary detail, something Scott included just because he could, just to add a little more weirdness to the office. And yet fans have catalogued them, discussed them, and incorporated them into fan art and fan games. Even the most useless details in FNAF get attention and appreciation. The paper plate Bonnie is particularly unsettling because of how crude it is. It's just a simple drawing, but there's something off about it, something that makes it feel wrong. Maybe it's the proportions, maybe it's the expression, or maybe it's just the context. Seeing a childish drawing in a horror game creates cognitive dissonance that enhances the creepiness. The paper plates are useless, but they're effectively useless, adding to the game's atmosphere without serving any mechanical purpose. Now let's talk about something truly magnificently useless: exotic butters. In Sister Location, after completing the fake ending on Night 5, you're presented with a basket of exotic butters as payment for your work. The game treats this completely seriously, with Hand Unit announcing that you've been given exotic butters in lieu of actual payment. The basket sits there on screen, a collection of colourful butter sticks wrapped in a red ribbon, and that's it. That's the joke. Exotic butters became an instant meme in the FNAF community. The absurdity of being paid in butter, the specific use of the word exotic, the complete seriousness with which the game presents this ridiculous concept, it all combined to create one of FNAF's most beloved jokes. Fans created art of exotic butters, wrote songs about exotic butters, made plushies of exotic butters. The exotic butters transcended their status as a throwaway gag to become a genuine icon of the franchise. The exotic butters appear again in Pizzeria Simulator, where you can buy them as a decoration for your restaurant. They serve no purpose, they don't attract customers or improve anything, they're just there to be exotic butters. Scott knew what he was doing. He knew the community loved this stupid joke, so he brought it back. The exotic butters are useless, they're silly, and they're perfect. They represent FNAF's sense of humour. The way Scott can include absurd elements alongside genuine horror. The specific choice of exotic butters is what makes the joke work. Not just butter, not fancy butter, but exotic butter. What makes butter exotic? Where does exotic butter come from? What does it taste like? These questions have no answers because exotic butters exist purely as a joke, a nonsense concept that sounds official and important while being completely meaningless. The exotic butters are the ultimate useless FNAF detail. They're literally a joke about being paid in something worthless. Fans have speculated about the exotic butters' deeper meaning, creating elaborate theories about how they're actually important to the lore. Maybe they contain remnant. Maybe they're a code word for something sinister. Maybe William Afton was in the exotic butter business. These theories are all jokes, but they show how FNAF fans can't help but analyse everything, even obvious gags. The exotic butters are useless, but we've made them meaningful through sheer force of community will. Let's discuss another useless but charming detail. The prize corner music box in FNAF 2. The music box plays My Grandfather's Clock, a public domain song from 1876. The song itself is about a grandfather clock that stops working when its owner dies, which is appropriately creepy for FNAF. But here's the useless detail. You can actually listen to the entire song if you just keep winding the music box and don't do anything else. It's a full, complete rendition of the song playing on loop throughout the night. The choice of My Grandfather's Clock is interesting from a useless trivia perspective. Scott could have used any public domain song, but he chose this one specifically. The lyrics, if you know them, are about time running out and death, which fits FNAF's themes. But most players don't know the lyrics, they just hear the melody. That slightly eerie tune that plays while you're trying to survive. The song has become inseparable from FNAF 2, instantly recognisable to anyone who's played the game. The music box mechanism itself is a useless detail in terms of realism. Why would a restaurant have a music box that needs to be wound remotely? Why would the puppet only stay in the box if the music is playing? It doesn't make practical sense, but it makes game sense. It's a mechanic that creates tension and forces you to divide your attention. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to include a full, proper rendition of the song rather than just a short loop. He didn't have to do that, but he did, adding a layer of authenticity to an otherwise absurd concept. If you listen carefully to the music box, you can hear the mechanical quality of the sound, the slight imperfections that make it sound like a real music box rather than a digital recording. This attention to detail is completely unnecessary. Most players are too stressed to notice or care, but it's there anyway. Scott sweated the small stuff, including details that 99% of players would never consciously register. The music box sounds like a music box, and that useless authenticity adds to the game's atmosphere. Another completely useless detail. The posters in your office change. In FNAF 1, the posters on your walls can randomly change to different, creepier versions. The Celebrate poster might show Freddy with no eyes, or just Golden Freddy's face, or other disturbing variations. These changes don't affect gameplay. They're just there to unnerve you, to make you feel like reality is shifting around you. Most players don't even notice the posters changing because they're too focused on the doors and cameras. The poster changes are Scott's way of creating subtle horror, the kind that works on your subconscious rather than jumping out at you. You might not consciously notice that the poster changed, but your brain registers it, creating a sense of unease and wrongness. It's a sophisticated horror technique wrapped in a simple indie game, and it's completely useless from a gameplay perspective. The posters could stay the same all night and the game would function identically, but Scott included the changes anyway because they add to the experience. Some of the poster variations are quite rare, appearing only under specific conditions or with very low probability. Dedicated players have catalogued all the different poster variations, documenting exactly when and how each one appears. This is useless knowledge. Knowing about the posters doesn't help you survive, but it's the kind of useless knowledge that FNAF fans love to collect. Every detail matters to someone, even if it doesn't matter to the game. The "it's me" hallucinations that appear on posters and walls are similarly useless but effective. The phrase appears randomly, sometimes on posters, sometimes on the walls, sometimes on the camera feeds. It doesn't mean anything mechanically. It's not a warning, it's not a clue, it's just there to be creepy. The phrase, "it's me," suggests recognition, identity, a personal connection, but the game never explains what it means or why it appears. It's atmospheric horror, pure and simple, and completely useless for survival. Let's talk about the cupcake. Chica's cupcake, officially named Mr. Cupcake or Carl the Cupcake depending on which source you believe, sits on a plate and has eyes. That's already weird enough, but here's the useless detail. In FNAF 1, if you look at the show stage camera, sometimes the cupcake is looking at the camera instead of forward. It's a tiny detail, easy to miss, and it doesn't mean anything. The cupcake just looks at you sometimes. That's it. The cupcake has become a fan favourite character despite being, well, a cupcake. It appears in every game in some form, always with those staring eyes, always slightly unsettling. The cupcake doesn't do anything. It's not an animatronic. It's not possessed, probably. It's just a prop that Chica carries around. But fans have latched onto it, creating art, theories and jokes about the cupcake. There are debates about whether the cupcake is alive, whether it's watching you, whether it's more dangerous than it appears. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to make the cupcake's eyes move at all. He could have just made it a static prop, but instead he programmed it to occasionally look at the camera. Why? Because it's creepy. Because it adds to the sense that everything in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is slightly wrong. Because even the food is watching you. It's a useless detail that enhances the horror through sheer wrongness. In later games, the cupcake gets more personality. In FNAF 2, Toy Chica's cupcake has a more elaborate design. In FNAF 4, there are nightmare cupcakes that are genuinely threatening. In Sister Location, there's a cupcake-themed minigame. The cupcake has evolved from a useless background detail to a recurring character, all because fans noticed it and Scott decided to run with the joke. The cupcake's journey from prop to character is a perfect example of how useless details can become important through community attention. Now let's discuss something truly pointless, the exact layout of the office. In FNAF 1, your office has specific dimensions, specific placement of objects, specific details that don't matter at all for gameplay. The desk is a certain size, the fan is positioned just so, the posters are at specific heights. None of this matters. The game could function with a completely abstract office. But Scott modelled it all anyway, creating a real space with real proportions. Fans have created 3D recreations of the office, measuring everything, figuring out the exact dimensions and layout. This is completely useless information. Knowing that the office is approximately 10 feet by 12 feet doesn't help you survive. Knowing the exact placement of the fan doesn't stop Freddy from killing you. but fans did it anyway because FNAF fans are thorough, documenting every detail whether it matters or not. The office has a claustrophobic quality that comes from its specific dimensions. It's small enough to feel trapped, but large enough that the doorways feel far away when you're checking cameras. The ceiling is low, the walls are close, and there's only one way out, through doors that you can't keep closed forever. These spatial details create psychological pressure, making you feel vulnerable and exposed. It's useless to know the exact measurements, but the measurements themselves aren't useless. They're carefully chosen to maximize discomfort. The office also has details that suggest it's a real workplace. There are papers on the desk, a drink cup, the fan, a desk lamp. These objects tell a story about the person who normally works here, about the mundane reality of being a security guard at a pizza restaurant. The horror is more effective because the setting is so ordinary. The useless details, the specific brand of fan, the type of paper on the desk, ground the horror in reality, making it feel like this could be a real place. Let's move on to phone numbers. In various FNAF games, there are phone numbers visible on posters, walls, and documents. These phone numbers are completely useless. You can't call them, they don't reveal anything, they're just there to look realistic. But fans have tried calling them anyway, hoping for Easter eggs or hidden messages. The numbers are fake, of course, but the fact that Scott included them shows his attention to detail. A real restaurant would have phone numbers on its promotional materials, so Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has phone numbers too. Some of the phone numbers follow real phone number formats, while others are obviously fake, like 1888FAZBEAR. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to make them look realistic at all. He could have just put random numbers or left them blurry, but instead he created phone numbers that look like they could be real. This adds to the verisimilitude, the sense that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is a real place that exists in a real world, even though we know it's fiction. The phone numbers also appear in the movie, continuing the tradition of useless but realistic details. The movie's version of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has phone numbers, addresses, and other contact information visible in various scenes. None of it matters to the plot. None of it reveals anything important, but it's there anyway because real places have this information. The useless details make the world feel lived in and authentic. Speaking of the movie, let's talk about its useless Easter eggs. The FNAF movie is packed with references to the games, most of which serve no purpose except to make fans smile. There's a brief shot of exotic butters in a shopping basket. There's a poster for a place called Sparky's. There are arcade cabinets with names that reference FNAF lore. None of these details advance the plot or develop the characters. They're just there for fans to spot and appreciate. The movie's approach to Easter eggs shows an understanding of what makes FNAF special. The franchise has always been about details, about noticing things, about paying attention to background elements. The movie honours this by filling every frame with little references and callbacks. You could watch the movie a dozen times and still find new details. This is useless from a storytelling perspective. A good movie should work without requiring you to spot Easter eggs, but it's essential from a fan service perspective. One of the movie's most useless but delightful details is the inclusion of MatPat, the YouTuber famous for his FNAF theories in a cameo role. He appears as a waiter named Ness, which is a reference to one of his most infamous theories, that Sans from Undertale is Ness from Earthbound. This cameo serves no purpose in the movie's story. MatPat's character could be played by anyone, but it's a wonderful acknowledgement of the community that made FNAF successful. The useless detail becomes meaningful because of context. Let's discuss the colour schemes of the animatronics. Freddy is brown, Bonnie is blue, despite being named Bonnie, which suggests a bunny, and bunnies are typically associated with white or pink. Chica is yellow, and Foxy is red. These colour choices are completely arbitrary. Scott could have made them any colours, but they've become iconic and unchangeable. The useless detail is that there's no in-universe reason for these specific colours. They're not explained by lore. They're not significant to the story. They're just the colours Scott chose when designing the characters. The colour choices do serve a practical purpose. They make the animatronics easily distinguishable from each other, even in dark or low quality camera feeds. You can tell which animatronic is which based on colour alone, which is important for gameplay. But the specific shades, the exact hues, the particular combinations, these are useless details that happen to work well and became permanent. Freddy's specific shade of brown, Bonnie's particular blue, Chica's exact yellow. None of these had to be what they are, but now they're essential to the characters' identities. Fans have created elaborate colour theories, suggesting that the animatronics' colours represent different things or have symbolic meanings. Freddy's brown represents earth and stability. Bonnie's blue represents sadness and melancholy. Chica's yellow represents cheerfulness and energy. Foxy's red represents danger and aggression. These interpretations are fun but completely made up. Scott chose the colours because they looked good and worked for the game, not because of deep symbolic meaning. The useless detail spawned meaningful fan interpretation. Now let's talk about the animatronics accessories. Freddy has a microphone and a top hat. Bonnie has a guitar. Chica has a bib that says "Let's eat" and carries a cupcake. Foxy has an eye patch and a hook. These accessories are completely useless from a horror perspective. They don't make the animatronics scarier or more dangerous, but they're essential to their identities as entertainment characters. The useless detail is how much thought went into these accessories, how they define each character's role in the band. Freddy's microphone suggests he's the lead singer, the frontman of the band. His top hat gives him a showman quality, a sense of being the master of ceremonies. These details tell you about Freddy's role without any dialogue or explanation. Bonnie's guitar makes him the musician, the cool one in the band. Chica's bib and cupcake emphasize her connection to food, appropriate for a restaurant mascot. Foxy's pirate theme makes him the adventurous one, the character who appeals to kids who like pirates and adventure. The accessories also create practical problems for the animatronics as horror monsters. Freddy has to carry a microphone around while hunting you. Bonnie has to lug a guitar through the building. Chica has to manage a cupcake on a plate. These are not practical tools for murder, but the animatronics keep them anyway because they're part of who they are. The useless detail is that Scott could have had the animatronics drop their accessories when they become active, but he didn't. They keep their props, maintaining their identities as entertainers even while trying to kill you. Fans have created elaborate backstories for the accessories. Where did Freddy get his top hat? Who gave Bonnie his guitar? Why does Chica's bib say, "Let's eat," specifically? These questions have no official answers because the accessories are just design choices, but fans have filled in the gaps with their own stories. The useless details become springboards for creativity, for fan fiction and fan art that explores aspects of the characters that the games never address. Let's discuss the restaurant's menu. In various FNAF games, You can see menu boards, posters advertising food, and references to what Freddy Fazbear's Pizza serves. The menu includes pizza, obviously, soda, cake, and other typical pizza restaurant fare. This is completely useless information. You never order food in the games, the menu never affects gameplay, but it's there anyway because a real restaurant would have a menu. The specific items on the menu tell you about what kind of establishment Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is. It's not a fancy restaurant, it's a family pizza place, the kind where kids have birthday parties and parents can get cheap food while their children play. The menu is simple, affordable, and designed for children. These useless details paint a picture of the restaurant's target audience and business model, adding depth to the world without serving any gameplay purpose. Some fans have tried to figure out the prices on the menu boards, zooming in on blurry images to read the numbers. This is magnificently useless. Knowing that a large pizza costs $12.99 at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza doesn't help you understand the lore or survive the night. But fans did it anyway because FNAF fans are completionists, documenting every detail no matter how trivial. The useless information gets catalogued, discussed, and preserved for posterity. The menu also includes items that are never explained or shown. What exactly is a Fazbear special? What comes on a Freddy's favourite pizza? What flavour is the Bonnie Blast soda? These questions have no answers because they're not important. They're just menu items that sound like something a pizza restaurant would have. The useless details create questions that don't need answering, mysteries that are better left mysterious. Now let's talk about the security cameras themselves. In FNAF 1 there are 11 camera feeds you can view. Each camera has a specific designation, Cam 1A, Cam 1B, etc., and covers a specific area of the restaurant. The useless detail is that these camera placements make sense from a real security perspective. They're positioned to cover entrances, hallways, and important rooms, exactly where you'd put cameras if you were actually trying to secure a building. The camera system's realism adds to the game's verisimilitude. This feels like a real security setup, not just a game mechanic. The cameras have blind spots, areas they don't cover, which makes sense. No security system is perfect. The cameras are in black and white with visible scan lines and static, looking like real low-budget security cameras from the 1990s. These useless details ground the game in reality, making the horror more effective because it feels like it could actually happen. Each camera feed has its own character, its own visual quality and quirks. Some cameras are clearer than others, some have more static, some are positioned at odd angles. These variations are completely unnecessary. Scott could have made all the cameras identical, but they add personality to each location. Cam 2. A feels different from Cam 4B, not just because they show different rooms, but because they have different visual qualities. The useless details make each camera feed memorable and distinct. Fans have created floor plans of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza based on the camera positions, figuring out the exact layout of the building. This is useless information that required significant effort to compile. People measured distances, calculated angles, and debated the placement of walls and doors. The result is a complete map of a fictional restaurant, useful for nothing except satisfying curiosity. But that's what FNAF fans do. They take useless details and make them meaningful through sheer dedication. Let's discuss the animatronics movement patterns. Each animatronic in FNAF 1 follows a specific path through the restaurant, moving from room to room in a predictable sequence. Freddy goes from show stage to dining area to restrooms to kitchen to East Hall Corner to your office. This pattern is consistent and learnable, which is important for gameplay. But the useless detail is that these paths make sense from a logical perspective. They're routes that someone walking through the building would actually take. The animatronics don't teleport randomly or move in impossible ways, except Golden Freddy, but he's special. They walk through doors, down hallways, through rooms, following paths that respect the building's layout. This realism is completely unnecessary for a horror game. Scott could have had them appear anywhere at any time. But it makes the animatronics feel more real, more like actual physical beings moving through actual physical space. Each animatronic's movement pattern also reflects their personality. Freddy is methodical and patient, taking his time to reach you. Bonnie is aggressive and fast, rushing toward your office. Chica is unpredictable, sometimes lingering in rooms. Foxy is explosive, staying hidden until he suddenly sprints down the hallway. These movement patterns are gameplay mechanics, but they're also character development, telling you about each animatronic's nature through their behaviour. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to make each pattern distinct and meaningful, rather than just random. Speedrunners have memorised these movement patterns down to the frame, knowing exactly when each animatronic will move and where they'll go. This knowledge is useful for speedrunning, but useless for normal play. Most players just react to the animatronics rather than predicting their movements. But the fact that the patterns are consistent enough to memorise shows Scott's attention to detail. The animatronics follow rules, and those rules can be learned, even if learning them is more effort than most players will invest. Now, let's talk about the restaurant's decorations. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is decorated with balloons, streamers, confetti, and other party decorations. These decorations are visible in camera feeds and on posters, adding colour and life to the environment. They're completely useless from a gameplay perspective. The decorations don't affect anything, but they're essential for establishing the restaurant's identity as a place for children's parties. The decorations also create a contrast with the horror. Balloons and streamers are associated with happiness, celebration, and childhood joy. Seeing them in a horror context creates cognitive dissonance, making the horror more effective. The useless details, the specific colours of the balloons, the way the streamers are hung, the placement of the confetti, all contribute to this contrast. The restaurant looks like it should be fun, which makes the reality of being hunted by animatronics even more disturbing. Some of the decorations are damaged or old, showing the restaurant's decline. Balloons are deflated, streamers are torn, confetti is scattered on the floor. These useless details tell a story about the restaurant's current state without any dialogue or exposition. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has seen better days, and you can tell just by looking at the decorations. The useless details become environmental storytelling, conveying information through visual design. Fans have analysed the decorations for hidden meanings and Easter eggs. Is that balloon in the corner significant? Does the pattern of confetti spell something? Are the streamers arranged in a meaningful way? Usually the answer is no, they're just decorations. But occasionally, Scott does hide things in plain sight, so fans check everything. The useless details get scrutinised because you never know what might be important until it is. Let's discuss the animatronic's eye colours. Freddy has blue eyes, Bonnie has red eyes, Chica has purple eyes, Foxy has yellow eyes. These colour choices are arbitrary and useless. The animatronics could have any eye colour, but they've become defining characteristics. You can identify which animatronic is which just by their eye colour, even in darkness or from a distance. The useless detail is that Scott chose specific, distinct colours rather than making all the eyes the same. The eye colours also create different emotional effects. Freddy's blue eyes are cold and calculating. Bonnie's red eyes are aggressive and angry. Chica's purple eyes are unsettling and wrong. Foxy's yellow eyes are predatory and wild. These associations are subjective. Different people might interpret the colours differently, but they contribute to each animatronic's distinct personality. The useless detail of eye colour becomes a tool for characterization. In later games, the eye colours change or vary. The toy animatronics have different eye colours than the originals. The nightmare animatronics have glowing eyes. The Funtime animatronics have elaborate eye designs. Each iteration of the characters gets new eye colours or styles, but the original's eye colours remain iconic. Freddy will always have blue eyes in fans' minds, even when specific versions have different colours. The useless detail became canon, became essential to the characters' identities. Fans have created theories about what the eye colours mean. Do they indicate which child possesses which animatronic? Do they represent different emotions or states of being? Do they have symbolic significance? These theories are fun but baseless. The eye colours are just design choices, but the fact that fans theorise about them shows how FNAF fans approach the franchise. Everything might mean something, so everything gets analysed. The useless details become duster points in elaborate theories. Now let's talk about the sound design, specifically the ambient sounds. In FNAF 1 you can hear various background noises, the hum of electronics, distant sounds from the restaurant, the whir of the fan, occasional creaks and groans. These sounds are completely useless for gameplay. They don't warn you of danger or provide useful information, but they create atmosphere. The useless detail is how many different ambient sounds Scott included, layering them to create a rich audio environment. The ambient sounds make the restaurant feel alive, even though it's abandoned. You hear the building settling, air moving through vents, the buzz of fluorescent lights. These are the sounds of a real building at night. The kind of sounds you'd hear if you were actually sitting alone in an empty restaurant. The useless details of sound design make the experience more immersive, more believable, more effective as horror. Some ambient sounds are actually quite soothing if you ignore the context. The hum of the fan, the gentle buzz of electronics, the soft creaks of the building, these could be relaxing sounds in a different setting. There's something almost meditative about sitting in the office, listening to the ambient sounds if you can forget about the murderous animatronics. The useless details of sound design create an unexpected calm within the horror. Fans have isolated and analysed every sound in the game, creating libraries of FNAF audio files. They've identified every creak, every buzz, every hum, cataloguing them and discussing their sources. This is magnificently useless. Knowing the exact frequency of the fan's hum doesn't help you survive, but it's the kind of thorough documentation that FNAF fans excel at. Every useless detail gets preserved and studied. Let's discuss the office's lighting. In FNAF 1, your office has a specific lighting setup. Overhead lights that illuminate the room, and door lights that let you check the hallways. The useless detail is how the lighting changes throughout the night. As your power drains, the lights get dimmer, creating a visual representation of your dwindling resources. This is good game design, but it's also realistic. Lights do dim when power is low, The lighting also creates specific shadows and highlights that affect the horror. The always light falls on the doorways, the shadows in the corners, the glow of the monitor. All of these are carefully designed to maximize unease. The useless detail is that Scott could have used simple flat lighting, but instead he created a complex lighting setup that looks realistic and feels oppressive. The shadows aren't just dark areas, they're places where animatronics could be hiding, where danger could lurk. When the power runs out, the office goes completely dark except for emergency lighting. This darkness is terrifying, but it's also realistic. This is what would actually happen if the power failed. The useless detail is that Scott programmed a specific sequence for the power failure. The lights go out, the fan stops, the monitor shuts down, and you're left in darkness with only Freddy's eyes and music box melody. This sequence could have been instant, but instead it's gradual, letting you experience each stage of the power loss. The emergency lighting that remains after power failure is just enough to see Freddy's eyes glowing in the left doorway. This is brilliant horror design. You can see just enough to know you're doomed, but not enough to see anything else. The useless detail is the specific shade and intensity of the emergency lights, carefully calibrated to create maximum dread. Scott didn't just make it dark, he made it the perfect amount of dark for horror. Now let's talk about the newspapers and posters on the walls. These contain lore information, but they also contain useless details like fake advertisements, made-up phone numbers, and filler text. The newspapers have headlines about the missing children, but they also have other articles about local events, weather, and community news. These background articles are completely useless. They're not real, they don't matter, but they make the newspapers look authentic. The fake advertisements are particularly charming. There are ads for local businesses, classified sections, and other newspaper staples. None of this is readable or important, but it's there anyway, filling space and making the newspapers look real. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to create these fake ads at all. He could have just made the newspapers blank except for the important articles, but instead he created complete, realistic-looking newspapers. The posters advertising Freddy Fazbear's Pizza are similarly detailed. They have slogans, images of the animatronics, information about parties and events. Some of this information is useful for lore, but most of it is just filler, generic marketing copy that sounds like what a real pizza restaurant would use. Fun for the whole family, where fantasy and fun come to life. These slogans are useless, but they establish the restaurant's brand and target audience. Fans have tried to read every word on every poster and newspaper, zooming in on low-resolution images to decipher blurry text. Sometimes they find hidden messages or Easter eggs, but usually they just find filler text or lorem ipsum. The useless details occasionally hide useful information, which means fans have to check everything. The useless becomes potentially useful, so nothing can be ignored. Let's discuss the animatronics' teeth. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica and Foxy all have visible teeth in their designs. These teeth are completely unnecessary. The animatronics are entertainment characters for children. They don't need teeth. But they make the characters more unsettling. The useless detail is how many teeth each animatronic has, how they're arranged and what they look like. Scott designed specific dental structures for fictional robot animals. Freddy has a full set of teeth, visible when his mouth is open. They're square and blocky, looking somewhat like human teeth, but not quite right. Bonnie's teeth are similar, but arranged differently. Chica has a beak, but also teeth inside the beak, which is anatomically wrong for a chicken, but perfect for horror. Foxy has sharp, pointed teeth that look more predatory than the others. These useless details of dental design contribute to each character's distinct appearance and horror factor. The teeth also raise questions about the animatronic's construction. Why would someone build teeth into entertainment robots? Are they functional or just decorative? Can the animatronics actually bite with those teeth? These questions are useless. The teeth exist because they look scary, not because they make practical sense, but fans ask them anyway. The useless details create logical problems that fans try to solve with elaborate explanations. In later games, the teeth become more elaborate and horrifying. The nightmare animatronics have rows of sharp teeth. The fun-time animatronics have sophisticated dental structures. The teeth evolve from useless details to defining characteristics, becoming more prominent and important with each game. What started as a small design choice became a signature element of FNAF's horror aesthetic. Now let's talk about the animatronics' hands. Each animatronic has a specific hand design. Freddy has rounded, mitt-like hands. Bonnie has more articulated fingers. Chica has hands that can hold her cupcake plate. Foxy has a hook instead of one hand. These hand designs are useless details. The animatronics could have any hands, but they contribute to each character's distinct silhouette and functionality. The hands also tell you about each animatronic's role. Freddy's hands are designed for holding a microphone. Bonnie's hands can play guitar. Chica's hands can serve food. Foxy's hook is for his pirate theme. The useless details of hand design reflect each character's purpose as an entertainer. They're not just random robots. They're performers with specific roles, and their hands reflect those roles. The hands become important in jump scares, where you see them reaching toward you. The specific design of each animatronic's hands makes their jump scares distinct and recognizable. You can tell which animatronic got you based on the hands you see. This is useless information after you're already dead, but it adds variety to the jump scares and makes each animatronic's attack feel unique. Fans have analysed the hands for lore significance. Do the hand designs tell us anything about how the animatronics were built? Do they reveal information about the company that made them? Are there clues hidden in the finger joints or palm structures? Usually no, there are just hands, but fans check anyway. The useless details get scrutinised because in FNAF, you never know what might be important. Let's discuss the restaurant's floor plan. Based on the camera positions and the animatronics' movement patterns, fans have reconstructed the complete layout of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This is useless information. You never see the full restaurant. You never need to know the complete layout. But fans created it anyway. They measured distances, calculated room sizes, and debated the placement of walls and doors. The floor plan that emerges is actually quite logical. The restaurant has a show stage, a dining area, a kitchen, restrooms, hallways, and a security office. This is exactly what a real pizza restaurant would have, arranged in a sensible way. The useless detail is that Scott designed a complete, functional restaurant layout, even though players only see fragments of it through cameras. The world is complete, even though we only experience part of it. The floor plan also reveals interesting details about the restaurant's design. The security office is in a terrible location, far from the exit, with only 2 doors and no windows. It's a death trap really, which makes sense given the game's premise, but raises questions about why anyone would design an office this way. The useless detail becomes a plot hole that fans try to explain with elaborate theories about the office's original purpose. Some fans have created 3D models of the entire restaurant based on the reconstructed floor plan. You can walk through Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in virtual reality, exploring rooms you never see in the game. This is magnificently useless. It doesn't help you understand the lore or play the game better, but it's a testament to fans' dedication. The useless details inspire creative projects that expand the world beyond what the games show. Now let's talk about the time system. Each night in FNAF lasts approximately 8 to 9 minutes of real time, representing 6 hours of in-game time, midnight to 6 AM. This means each in-game hour passes in about 90 seconds of real time. This is completely arbitrary. Scott could have made nights any length, but he chose this specific timing for gameplay reasons. The useless detail is that the time progression is consistent and measurable, creating a real sense of time passing. The clock in your office ticks from 12 AM to 6 AM, and you can watch it progress. This creates tension. You're racing against time, trying to survive until 6 AM. But the useless detail is that the clock's progression isn't perfectly smooth. It moves in jumps, staying at each hour for a specific duration before jumping to the next. Scott could have made it count smoothly, but instead it jumps, which is how digital clocks actually work. The useless realism adds authenticity. The specific duration of each hour varies slightly based on the night and the game's difficulty. Night 1 might feel faster than Night 5 because the animatronics are more active, making time feel slower. This is psychological. The actual time is the same, but it shows how game design can manipulate perception. The useless detail is that Scott calibrated the timing to create maximum tension, making nights feel long enough to be challenging, but short enough to be replayable. Fans have timed each night precisely, measuring exactly how long each in-game hour lasts. This is useless information that required stopwatches and multiple playthroughs to compile. The result is a complete breakdown of FNAF's time system, useful for nothing except satisfying curiosity. But that's what FNAF fans do. They measure everything, document everything, analyse everything, even when it's completely useless. Let's discuss the power system. In FNAF 1, you have limited power that drains throughout the night. Using doors, lights and cameras consumes power faster. This is a brilliant game mechanic that creates resource management tension. But the useless detail is how the power is displayed, as a percentage that ticks down gradually, with a visual indicator showing your current usage level. The power display is designed to create anxiety. You watch the percentage drop, knowing that when it hits 0, you're doomed. The visual indicator shows how much power you're using at any moment, letting you see the cost of your actions. This is good game design, but it's also realistic. Real power systems have meters and indicators. The useless detail is that Scott made the power display look like a real electrical meter, rather than just a simple bar. The power consumption rates are carefully balanced. Doors consume the most power, lights consume less, cameras consume even less, and just sitting idle still drains power slowly. These rates are arbitrary. Scott could have made them anything, but they're calibrated to create specific gameplay dynamics. The useless detail is the exact consumption rate of each action, measured in percentage points per second. Fans have calculated these rates precisely, creating spreadsheets of power consumption data. The power system also creates interesting strategic decisions. Do you close both doors and feel safe but run out of power quickly? Do you leave doors open and risk animatronics entering? Do you check cameras frequently or conserve power? These decisions are what make FNAF 1 engaging, and they're all built on the useless detail of specific power consumption rates. The numbers could be different, but Scott chose these specific values, and they work perfect. Now let's talk about the animatronics voices. In later games the animatronics speak, but in FNAF 1 they're mostly silent except for their movement sounds. The useless detail is the specific sounds each animatronic makes when moving. Freddy has a musical laugh, Bonnie makes footsteps and a groaning sound, Chica makes kitchen noises and a groaning sound, Foxy makes running footsteps and a banging sound. These sounds are distinct and recognisable, letting you identify which animatronic is active just by listening. The sounds are also realistic within the game's logic. Freddy's laugh sounds like it could come from a music box or sound chip inside an animatronic. Bonnie and Chica's groans sound mechanical, like servos and joints moving. Foxy's running sounds like metal feet on tile floor. The useless detail is that Scott made these sounds believable as animatronic noises rather than just using generic scary sounds. The audio design respects the game's internal logic. Each animatronic's sound also reflects their personality. Freddy's laugh is playful but sinister. Bonnie's groans are aggressive and harsh. Chica's kitchen sounds are chaotic and messy. Foxy's running is explosive and violent. The useless details of sound design become character development, telling you about each animatronic's nature through audio alone. You can understand their personalities just by listening to them move. Fans have isolated and analysed every sound file in the game, identifying the source of each noise and discussing how it was created. Some sounds are synthesized, some are recorded, some are modified from real-world sources. This is useless information that required audio editing software and careful listening to compile, but fans did it anyway, because FNAF fans are thorough, documenting every aspect of the games whether it matters or not. Let's discuss the restaurant's history as shown through environmental details. The building looks old and worn, with stains on the walls, damaged tiles and aging equipment. These details tell a story about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza's decline, without any dialogue or exposition. The useless detail is how specific and consistent these signs of age are. Scott didn't just make things look generically old, he created specific types of wear and damage that tell a coherent story. The stains on the walls are in logical places, near the floor where spills would occur, around doorways where hands would touch, in corners where dirt accumulates. The damaged tiles are where you'd expect heavy traffic or impacts. The aging equipment shows rust and wear in places that would actually rust and wear. These useless details of environmental design create a believable space that feels like it has a history. The restaurant's decline is also shown through the decorations. Old posters are faded and torn, balloons are deflated, streamers are hanging loose. These details suggest that the restaurant can't afford or doesn't bother to maintain its appearance anymore. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to show this decline at all. He could have made the restaurant look pristine, but showing the wear and tear adds to the atmosphere of abandonment and decay. Fans have analysed the environmental details for timeline clues. How old are those stains? When were those tiles damaged? How long has that poster been fading? These questions are mostly unanswerable. The details are just there for atmosphere, but fans try anyway. The useless details become data points in attempts to construct a precise timeline of the restaurant's history. Now let's talk about the prize corner in FNAF 2. This room is filled with toys, prizes, and decorations. The useless detail is how many different toys and prizes are visible in the room. There are plushies, action figures, balls, and various other prizes that a pizza restaurant might give away. None of these specific items matter, they're just background details, but they make the prize corner feel like a real place. The toys include versions of the animatronic characters, which makes sense. A restaurant would sell merchandise of its mascots. But there are also generic toys, random prizes, and miscellaneous items that have nothing to do with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. These useless details make the prize corner feel authentic, like a real collection of prizes accumulated over time rather than a carefully curated display. The prize corner also contains the puppet's music box, which is the room's main gameplay element. But surrounding that important object are dozens of useless details, posters, decorations, toys, and other items that don't affect gameplay. Scott filled the room with details because that's what a real prize corner would look like: cluttered, colourful, and full of stuff. The useless details create atmosphere and authenticity. Fans have tried to identify every toy and prize in the prize corner, cataloguing them and discussing their significance. Most of them are just generic toys with no deeper meaning, but fans document them anyway. The useless details get the same attention as important lore elements, because in FNAF, you never know what might be significant until it is. Let's discuss the animatronics walking animations. In later games, where you can see the animatronics move, each one has a distinct walking style. Freddy walks slowly and deliberately. Bonnie moves with aggressive purpose. Chica waddles slightly. Foxy runs in a hunched, predatory stance. These walk-in animations are useless details. The animatronics could all move the same way, but they add personality and make each character distinct. The walking animations also reflect each animatronic's nature and role. Freddy's slow walk suggests patience and inevitability. He's not in a hurry because he knows he'll get you eventually. Bonnie's aggressive movements suggest anger and determination. Chica's waddle makes her seem less threatening but also more unsettling. There's something wrong about the way she moves. Foxy's run is pure predatory instinct, a hunter charging at prey. The animations are also mechanically believable. The animatronics move like robots, with slight stiffness and mechanical precision. They don't move like humans or animals. They move like machines pretending to be animals. This useless detail of animation design makes the animatronics feel more real within the game's logic. They're not just monsters, they're malfunctioning entertainment robots, and their movement reflects that. Fans have analysed the walking animations frame by frame, discussing the technical aspects of how they were created and what they reveal about the animatronics construction. This is magnificently useless. Knowing the exact frame rate of Bonnie's walk cycle doesn't help you survive, but it's the kind of deep analysis that FNAF fans love. Every useless detail becomes worthy of study and discussion. Now let's talk about something wonderfully pointless: the specific brands and models of equipment in the office. The monitor you use to view cameras looks like a specific type of CRT security monitor from the 1990s. The fan appears to be a standard desk fan, the kind you could buy at any office supply store. The phone on your desk looks like a specific model of landline telephone. These are completely useless details. Scott could have used generic, unidentifiable equipment. but he chose to make everything look like real, specific objects. This attention to detail creates a sense of time and place. The equipment tells you when the game is set. This is 1990s technology, not modern digital systems. The specific models suggest a budget operation that bought cheap, standard equipment rather than specialised security gear. The useless details paint a picture of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as a struggling business cutting corners on everything, including security equipment. Fans have tried to identify the exact models of equipment shown in the game, comparing them to real products from the 1990s. Did Scott base the monitor on a specific model? Is that fan a real brand? What model is that telephone? These questions are magnificently useless. The equipment is just there to look realistic, but fans investigate anyway. The useless details become puzzles to solve, mysteries to unravel, even when there's no mystery at all. The equipment also shows signs of age and use. The monitor has a slight flicker suggesting old electronics. The fan has dust on its blades. The phone looks worn and scratched. These useless details of wear and tear make the office feel lived in, like a real workplace where real people have worked for years. The equipment isn't pristine. It's old, used, and barely functional, just like everything else at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Let's discuss the specific wording of the rules and instructions you receive. Phone Guy's messages in FNAF 1 contain specific phrases and word choices that are completely arbitrary, but have become iconic. Hello? 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 Is how he starts every call. Fascinating is a word he uses repeatedly. Probably not is his way of downplaying danger. These useless details of dialogue have become memes and catchphrases in the community. The specific wording also reveals Phone Guy's personality. He's nervous, trying to sound casual while delivering terrifying information. He uses filler words like and making him sound more human and relatable. He downplays danger with phrases like no big deal and probably fine, which makes the danger seem worse because he's clearly lying. The useless details of how he speaks are as important as what he says. Phone Guy also provides useless information mixed with useful information. He tells you about the animatronic's history, the restaurant's policies, and various technical details that don't help you survive. He mentions the bite of 87, but doesn't explain what it was. He talks about the animatronics programming, but doesn't tell you how to stop them. The useless information creates atmosphere and lore, while the useful information helps you survive, and Phone Guy blends them together seamlessly. Fans have transcribed every word of Phone Guy's messages, analysing them for hidden meanings and clues. Every pause, every word choice gets scrutinised. Sometimes this analysis reveals actual clues, but usually it just reveals that Phone Guy is a nervous guy trying to do his job. The useless details of dialogue become data for elaborate theories about Phone Guy's identity, motivations, and fate. Now let's talk about the specific layout of the show stage. Freddy stands in the centre, Bonnie is on the left, and Chica is on the right. This arrangement is completely arbitrary. They could stand in any order, but it's consistent across games and has become the canonical arrangement. The useless detail is that this specific positioning tells you about the character's hierarchy and relationships. Freddy in the centre suggests he's the leader, the main character, the star of the show. Bonnie on the left and Chica on the right creates visual balance and suggests they're equal supporting characters. Foxy isn't on the stage at all, suggesting he's separate from the main group, an outsider or a special attraction. These useless details of positioning create a social structure for the animatronics without any dialogue or explanation. The show stage also has specific decorations and props. There are stars, curtains and stage lights that make it look like a real performance space. These details are completely unnecessary. The stage could be bare, but they make it feel like a real restaurant stage where real performances happened. The useless details create a sense of history, suggesting countless birthday parties and shows that took place on this stage before everything went wrong. Fans have analysed the show stage layout for symbolic meaning. Does Freddy's central position represent his importance to the lore? Does Bonnie being on the left mean something? Why is Chica on the right specifically? These questions are mostly meaningless. The positions are just design choices, but fans ask them anyway. The useless details become symbols that fans interpret and reinterpret, finding meaning where none was intended. Let's discuss the specific design of the doors. In FNAF 1, the doors are heavy metal security doors that slam down when you press the button. They make a specific sound when closing and opening, a mechanical clang that's both reassuring and ominous. The useless detail is how these doors look and sound. Scott could have used any door design, but he chose these specific heavy security doors. The door's design tells you something about the office's purpose. These aren't normal office doors, they're security doors, designed to lock down the space. This raises questions. Why does a pizza restaurant security office need heavy lockdown doors? What were they expecting to happen? The useless detail of door design creates a plot point. Someone knew the office would need serious security, which suggests they knew the animatronics were dangerous. The doors also have a specific visual design with windows that let you see into the hallways. These windows are small and positioned at eye level, creating a claustrophobic feeling. You can see out, but your view is limited, and you never know what might be just outside your field of vision. The useless detail of window size and placement creates psychological tension, making you feel vulnerable even with the doors closed. The sound of the doors is particularly important. The slam when they close is satisfying and reassuring. You're safe now, protected by metal. The whir when they open is tense. You're vulnerable again, exposed to danger. These useless details of sound design create emotional responses that enhance the gameplay. The doors aren't just mechanics, they're sources of comfort and anxiety, and their sounds reinforce those emotions. Now let's talk about the specific design of the hallways. The East Hall and West Hall in FNAF 1 have distinct appearances despite serving the same function. The East Hall has a specific pattern of tiles, specific wall decorations and specific lighting. The West Hall has its own distinct look. These useless details make each hallway feel unique and memorable, even though they're functionally identical. The hallways are also unnaturally long and dark, creating a sense of distance between you and the animatronics. When you see Bonnie or Chica in the hallway, they seem far away, but they can reach your door in seconds. This disconnect between visual distance and actual threat creates tension. The useless detail is the specific length and lighting of the hallways, carefully designed to maximize this effect. The hallways also have specific details like posters, decorations and architectural features. There are doorways to other rooms, wall decorations, and various details that make the hallways feel like real spaces rather than just corridors. These useless details create a sense of place, making Freddy Fazbear's Pizza feel like a complete building with a logical layout, rather than just a series of game spaces. Fans have measured the hallways, calculated their length, and debated their exact dimensions. How long are the hallways? How wide? What's the ceiling height? These questions are magnificently useless. The hallways are as long as they need to be for gameplay, but fans investigate anyway. The useless details become data points in attempts to create accurate 3D models and floor plans. Let's discuss the specific appearance of the animatronics endoskeletons. In various games, you can see the metal skeleton underneath the animatronics' outer shells. These endoskeletons have specific designs with visible joints, wires, and mechanical components. The useless detail is how realistic and detailed these endoskeletons are. Scott could have made them simple and generic, but instead he created complex, believable mechanical structures. The endoskeletons look like they could actually function as the framework for animatronic characters. They have joints where joints would need to be, support structures where support would be needed, and mechanical components that look like they serve actual purposes. This useless realism makes the animatronics feel more real, more like actual machines rather than just monsters. The horror is enhanced because these feel like things that could exist. Each animatronic's endoskeleton is slightly different, reflecting their different sizes and designs. Freddy's endoskeleton is sturdy and solid. Bonnie's is taller and more angular. Chica's has specific features for her beak and wings. Foxy's is more exposed and damaged. These useless details of endoskeleton design make each animatronic unique even at the mechanical level, adding depth to their designs. Fans have analysed the endoskeletons for technical accuracy, discussing whether they could actually support the animatronic's movements and functions. Could these endoskeletons really work? Are the joints positioned correctly? Do the mechanical components make sense? These questions are useless. The endoskeletons are fictional designs for fictional robots, but fans ask them anyway. The useless details get treated as real engineering problems to solve. Now let's talk about the specific design of the camera's user interface. The camera system in FNAF1 has a specific layout with a map showing camera positions and buttons to switch between feeds. This interface is completely arbitrary. Scott could have designed it anyway. But he chose a specific layout that looks like a real security system interface from the 1990s. The interface has useless details like labels for each camera, a map that shows the restaurant's layout, and visual indicators for which camera is currently selected. These details aren't necessary. You could switch cameras without them, but they make the system feel more real and professional. The useless details create the illusion that you're using actual security equipment rather than just a game mechanic. The map itself is interesting because it shows the restaurant's layout in a simplified schematic form. This is the closest thing to an official floor plan that the game provides, and fans have used it to reconstruct the building's layout. The useless detail is that the map is accurate and consistent, showing real spatial relationships between rooms. Scott could have made it abstract or inaccurate, but instead he created a functional map. The camera interface also has visual glitches and imperfections that make it feel like old technology. The map flickers slightly, the camera feeds have static, and the whole system feels unstable. These useless details of visual design create tension. The equipment feels unreliable, like it might fail at any moment. The interface isn't just functional, it's a source of anxiety, and its imperfections enhance that anxiety. Let's discuss the specific timing of the animatronic's movements. Each animatronic has specific intervals at which they move, specific patterns of activity that change throughout the night. Freddy moves more frequently as the night progresses. Bonnie is active early. Chica follows her own schedule. Foxy has specific timing for his attacks. These useless details of timing create the game's difficulty curve and pacing. The timing is carefully calibrated to create specific experiences. Night 1 is easy because the animatronics move slowly and infrequently. Night 5 is hard because they move constantly and aggressively. The useless detail is the exact timing values. How many seconds between movements, how the intervals change, how the difficulty scales. Scott could have used any values, but he chose specific numbers that create the perfect difficulty progression. Speedrunners have memorized these timing values down to the second, knowing exactly when each animatronic will move and planning their strategies accordingly. This is useful for speedrunning but useless for normal play. Most players just react to movements rather than predicting them. But the fact that the timing is consistent enough to memorize shows Scott's attention to detail. The animatronics follow precise rules, even if most players never learn those rules. The timing also creates psychological effects. The longer you go without seeing an animatronic move, the more anxious you become. The anticipation is worse than the actual movement. Scott understood this and calibrated the timing to maximize anxiety, creating long enough intervals that you start to relax, then having an animatronic move just when you've let your guard down. The useless details of timing become tools for psychological manipulation. Now, let's talk about the specific design of the jump scares. Each animatronic has a unique jump scare animation with specific movements, sounds and visual effects. Freddy's jump scare is different from Bonnie's, which is different from Chica's, which is different from Foxy's. These useless details make each death feel distinct and memorable rather than repetitive. The jump scares are also designed to be maximally startling. They're loud, sudden, and fill the screen with the animatronic's face. But the useless detail is how each jump scare reflects the animatronic's personality. Freddy's is slow and inevitable. Bonnie's is aggressive and violent. Chica's is chaotic and messy. Foxy's is explosive and fast. The jump scares aren't just generic scares, they're character moments that tell you about each animatronic through their attack. The jump scares also have specific visual details like the animatronic's expressions, the angle of their approach, and the way they move. These details are visible for only a fraction of a second. The jump scare is over almost instantly, but they're there anyway. Scott crafted each jump scare carefully, adding details that most players will never consciously notice, but that contribute to the overall impact. Fans have analysed the jump scares frame by frame, discussing every detail of their construction. How many frames is each jump scare? What exactly happens in each frame? What sounds are layered together? This is magnificently useless. Knowing the technical details of a jump scare doesn't make it less scary, but it shows fans' dedication to understanding every aspect of the games. The useless details get documented and discussed with the same seriousness as important lore. Let's discuss the specific weather and time of day outside the restaurant. You never see outside in FNAF 1, but various details suggest it's nighttime, obviously, and the weather is calm. There are no sounds of rain, wind or storms. The building is quiet except for internal sounds. These useless details create a specific atmosphere. You're isolated in this building, cut off from the outside world, alone with the animatronics. The absence of external sounds is itself a useless detail that creates effect. Scott could have added ambient sounds of traffic, weather, or other external noises, but he didn't. The silence outside makes the building feel more isolated and the internal sounds more prominent. The useless detail of what's not there is as important as what is there. The time of day is also significant in a useless way. The game takes place from midnight to 6 AM, the dead of night when most people are asleep. This is the loneliest, most isolated time, when help is least available and fear is most intense. Scott could have set the game at any time, but he chose these specific hours for maximum psychological impact. The useless detail of timing creates atmosphere and enhances horror. Fans have speculated about what's outside the restaurant, what the surrounding area looks like, and what's happening in the world while you're trapped in the office. These questions have no answers. The outside world doesn't exist in the game, but fans imagine it anyway. The useless details that aren't shown become spaces for imagination and speculation. Now, let's talk about the specific design of the animatronics costumes. The outer shells that cover the endoskeletons have specific textures, colours and details. Freddy's fur looks like a specific type of fabric. Bonnie's surface has a particular sheen. Chica's beak has a specific shape and texture. These useless details make each animatronic look distinct and believable as physical objects. The costumes also show signs of age and wear. There are stains, tears and damage visible on the animatronics surfaces. These details tell a story about the restaurant's decline and the animatronic's age. The useless detail is how specific and realistic this wear is. Scott didn't just make them look generically old, he created specific types of damage that make sense for animatronic costumes that have been used for years. The costume's design also reflects their purpose as children's entertainment. They're colourful, friendly looking, in theory, and designed to be appealing to kids. The horror comes from the contrast between their intended purpose and their current behaviour. The useless details of costume design, the bright colours, the friendly shapes, the entertainment-focused aesthetics, make the horror more effective by creating cognitive dissonance. Fans have discussed the materials the costumes might be made from, how they're attached to the endoskeletons, and how they're maintained. These questions are useless. The costumes are fictional, designed for fictional robots, but fans treat them as real engineering problems. The useless details inspire technical discussions about how these animatronics could actually be built and maintained. Let's discuss the specific design of the restaurant signage. Throughout the games you can see signs for different areas: restrooms, kitchen, dining area, parts and service. These signs are completely standard, the kind you'd see in any restaurant, but they're there anyway, making the space feel real and functional. The useless detail is that Scott bothered to include proper signage at all. He could have left areas unlabelled. The signage also shows the restaurant's branding. Signs featuring the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza logo, images of the animatronics, and the restaurant's colour scheme appear throughout the building. This is realistic. A real restaurant would have branded signage, but it's useless for gameplay. The signs don't tell you anything you need to know. They just make the world feel more complete and authentic. Some signs are damaged or old, showing the restaurant's decline. Faded letters, broken lights, and worn surfaces tell a story about the building's age and the company's financial struggles. These useless details of signage condition create environmental storytelling, conveying information about the restaurant's history without any dialogue or exposition. Fans have catalogued every sign visible in the games, documenting their text, design, and condition. This is magnificently useless. The signs are just background details, but fans document them anyway. Every useless detail gets preserved and analysed, contributing to the community's comprehensive documentation of the FNAF universe. Now let's talk about the specific design of the animatronics' joints and articulation. The animatronics have visible joints at their shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, and other points of articulation. These joints look mechanical and functional, with visible hinges, bolts, and connection points. The useless detail is how realistic and detailed these joints are. Scott could have hidden them, or made them simple, but instead he created complex, believable mechanical joints. The joints also move in realistic ways, with appropriate ranges of motion and mechanical limitations. The animatronics don't bend in impossible ways or move with supernatural fluidity. They move like machines, with the stiffness and precision of mechanical systems. This useless realism makes them more frightening because they feel more real, more like things that could actually exist. Each animatronic's joints are slightly different, reflecting their different designs and sizes. Freddy's joints are sturdy and solid. Bonnie's are more exposed and visible. Chica's have specific features for her wings. Foxy's are damaged and worn. These useless details of joint design add to each character's distinct appearance and personality. Fans have analysed the joints for technical accuracy, discussing whether they could actually support the animatronics' movements. Could these joints really work? Are they positioned correctly? Do they have appropriate ranges of motion? These questions are useless. The joints are fictional designs. But fans ask them anyway, treating the animatronics as real engineering problems to solve. Let's discuss the specific ambient lighting throughout the restaurant. Different rooms have different lighting setups. Some are bright, some are dim, some have coloured lights. The show stage has stage lights. The dining area has overhead lights. The hallways are dimly lit. These useless details of lighting design create distinct atmospheres for each area and make the restaurant feel like a real space with functional lighting. The lighting also changes based on the camera's quality and the time of night. Some cameras show areas that are darker than others. Some lights flicker or fail. The lighting feels dynamic and realistic, like a real building's electrical system rather than static game lighting. The useless detail is how much variation and realism Scott built into the lighting system. The specific colours of lights are also useless details that create effect. Some areas have warm yellowish lighting that feels inviting. Others have cool bluish lighting that feels sterile and uncomfortable. The lighting colours create emotional responses that enhance the horror, making some areas feel safe and others feel dangerous, even though the lighting itself doesn't affect gameplay. Fans have analysed the lighting for symbolic meaning and practical implications. What do the different lighting colours represent? How does the lighting affect the animatronic's behaviour? Are there patterns in which areas are lit and which are dark? These questions mostly have no answers. The lighting is just there for atmosphere. But fans investigate anyway. The useless details become data points in elaborate theories. Now let's talk about the specific design of the restaurant's furniture. In camera feeds you can see tables, chairs and other furniture scattered throughout the dining area. This furniture is completely standard restaurant furniture, nothing special or unique, but it's there anyway, making the space feel real and functional. The useless detail is that Scott modelled and placed this furniture even though it serves no gameplay purpose. The furniture's arrangement also tells a story. Some tables are neat and organised, others are messy or overturned. This suggests the restaurant's current state, abandoned, possibly after some kind of incident. The useless details of furniture placement create environmental storytelling, showing rather than telling what happened to this place. The specific style of furniture also tells you about the restaurant's target audience and budget. These are cheap, durable tables and chairs designed for children and families. They're not fancy or expensive, they're functional and practical, the kind of furniture a budget pizza restaurant would buy. The useless details of furniture design convey information about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as a business. Fans have analysed the furniture for hidden details and Easter eggs. Are there patterns in how the furniture is arranged? Do the overturned tables tell a story? Are there clues hidden in the furniture placement? Usually, no, it's just furniture, but fans check anyway. The useless details get scrutinised because in FNAF, you never know what might be important. And as we drift deeper into these wonderfully useless details, as we explore every tiny aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's that doesn't matter but somehow does, we find ourselves relaxing into the absurdity of it all. These details don't help you survive, don't solve mysteries, don't advance the plot, but they make the world feel real, complete, and lived in. They're the difference between a game and a place, between characters and personalities, between horror and art. The useless details are what make FNAF special. They're what fans latch onto, what they remember, what they discuss and analyse and celebrate. The nose honk, the fan, the exotic butters, the cupcake's eyes. These meaningless elements have become more iconic than many important plot points. They're useless, but they're essential. They don't matter, but they're everything. So as you drift off to sleep, think about those useless details. Think about Freddy's nose honking, about the fan spinning eternally, about paper plates on walls and exotic butter in baskets. Think about all the tiny, meaningless, wonderful details that Scott Cawthon included, just because he could, just to make his world a little more complete, a little more real, a little more special. These useless details are a gift to fans, a reward for paying attention, an acknowledgement that the small things matter even when they don't. They're proof that someone cared enough to make everything right, even the things that didn't need to be. They're the heart of FNAF hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice and appreciate them. Let's end with one more useless detail, the specific way the game over screen appears. When an animatronic gets you, there's a jump scare, then static, then a game over screen showing your character stuffed into a Freddy Fazbear suit. This screen has specific details, the way the eyes glow in the darkness of the suit, the angle of the head, the visible endoskeleton parts. These details are useless because you've already lost, but they're there anyway, creating one final moment of horror. The game over screen also includes text, Game Over, in a specific font with a specific colour. This text is completely standard. Every game has a game over screen, but Scott chose a specific style that fits FNAF's aesthetic. The useless detail is that he bothered to make the game over screen look good and fit the game's theme rather than just using generic text. The screen also stays up for a specific duration before returning you to the menu. This timing is arbitrary, it could be any length, but Scott chose a specific duration that's long enough to let the horror sink in but short enough that you're not waiting forever. The useless detail of timing creates the perfect emotional beat, letting you process your death before moving on. And now, surrounded by useless knowledge about animatronic teeth and office furniture, about camera interfaces and door sounds, about game over screens and timing values, about all the tiny details that make Five Nights at Freddy's the rich, fascinating world it is, you can rest. The useless information has done its job, filling your mind with gentle trivia, pushing out stress and worry, creating a soft cushion of meaningless facts to drift away on. These details are love letters to fans, proof that someone cared enough to make everything perfect, even the things that didn't need to be. They're the reason FNAF became more than just a horror game. They're what made it a world, a community, a phenomenon. The useless details are the soul of FNAF, and they're what we'll remember long after we've forgotten the jump scares and the lore revelations. Sweet dreams, and remember, sometimes the most useless things are the most valuable. Sometimes what doesn't matter is what matters most. Sometimes a honking nose is more important than any lore revelation. Sometimes the fan is the real star of the show. Sometimes the details that serve no purpose are the ones that matter most. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with exotic butters, eternally spinning fans, and the gentle honk of Freddy's nose echoing through the peaceful darkness of sleep.